Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best free counters to all of the top 10 brawlers in the meta right now. So this video is a little bit of a sneak peek to the tier list that I'll be doing around Tuesday, so make sure to subscribe if you're not already so you don't miss out on that banger. But without further ado, let's jump into the top 10 brawlers and of course their best counters. So starting off with Brawl. So Brawl, I would say, might be a bit of a shock to you guys in terms of the top 10, but I think in competitive right now he's so incredibly strong. And the best counters to him, of course, him being a tank, is a little bit obvious. The first one is going to be Shelly. There's no explanation really to this needed, right? It's Shelly. Shelly just completely wrecks tanks right now. And of course, with her hypercharge as well, it just makes it incredibly hard for Brawl to really do anything to Shelly. Of course, if she wastes a few pieces of ammo, then you might be able to take her down. The next big one for me, which is specifically to do with his hypercharge, it is Cordelius. So the main reason why Cordelius is so good against Brawl, of course he can just feed his super from Brawl pretty easily, but the best thing about him, if Brawl of course uses his hypercharge super onto Cordelius, he can actually just cancel that with his super. So it's a really good cancellation to a lot of different hypercharges. Cordelius is a fantastic counter. Then there's a couple more as well. You know, of course, Lou with his hypercharge at the moment is just absolutely destroying through every single tank right now. And of course, the freeze mechanic can stop Brawl in his tracks with his hypercharge super. And the same kind of goes with Tara in a way, but more so with Tara. Wait until Brawl's super actually finishes, and then you can use your super to pull Brawl even closer to you or further away, depending on how low you are, of course. But there's a lot of good counters to Brawl. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler, we're going to be taking a look at the best counters too. It is Charlie's. Charlie's a brand new brawler, which a lot of you guys probably don't even have your hands on her just yet, but she's like the best brawler in the game still, even after the emergency nerfs. So there's only really, I would say, a few counters to her. If anything, there's like no counters to her, because there's a way that she can win the battle in the long term. But the best counter to her by far will be throwers, because there's no mechanic within Charlie's kit which allows her to maybe jump over a wall or just be aggressive in any nature, except for the hypercharge maybe. So throwers can keep the distance pretty well, especially on unbreakable wall maps, and can counter her and stop from feeding her super. And the next one's going to be spawners. So spawners isn't like the biggest counter, but at the same time it's decent, because of course you don't shoot through things with Charlie's attack like you probably would do with Carl's attack. So spawners can be a little bit annoying for her, will push her back a little bit, but at the same time you can spam your attack pretty quickly and you don't actually waste ammo. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a soft counter if anything. And then the final one is a brawler that outranges Charlie, but still most of the time I find that Charlie can just counter those long range brawlers with her spiders, and then eventually close the gap close enough where she can just spam auto aim. So yeah, I've really struggled to find some good counters, and the last one is actually Cordelius. I think Cordelius is a good counter to Charlie, mainly because of the fact that you can jump over Charlie's super, and in a 1v1 when Cordelius is in the shadow room against her, he should be able to have the DPS to take her down. So I think actually out of all of those, Cordelius is the best counter. So jumping into the next brawler we're looking to counter in the top 10, it is Cordelius. So Cordelius is just a menace right now. He's so insanely strong, and the best counters, we kind of have to rewind back to when he was the best brawler in the game, like 4 months ago or so. So the first one's going to be Spike. So the main reason being is because Spike has that life plank gadget, which is just good at tanking a few Cordelius shots. I don't think he can tank the super though. I completely forgot that interaction. You'll have to let me know in the comment section. But he's just been a good counter, because especially in the mid-range engagement, Spike actually has some really good DPS and can take Cordelius down in that shadow realm. The next decent counter is going to be Tara. So mainly kind of like, you know, with Charlie's spiders, Tara's pets can just waste a little bit of ammo from Cordelius, and Tara has some decent damage at that kind of mid-range as well. So it's pretty hard for Cordelius to take her down a lot of the time. The next one is going to be Stu. So Stu's a good counter to Cordelius a little bit, because of course he got his dash to avoid the Cordelius super. And not only that, I feel like Stu's damage as well is actually pretty hard to run it into a Stu. Even without his dash, of course, he can't use his super in a shadow realm. Even without that, Stu can, of course, withhold him pretty easily. And the last one is going to be Ash, because Ash can actually heal up with his gadget and just be really annoying to Cordelius. And of course, he got the super as well to waste even more Cordelius ammo. So I feel like that's a hard interaction for Cordelius to win. So jumping into the next brawler we're looking to counter, it is Lou with his hypercharge, which is just breaking the game right now. So the main counter to Lou, I believe, in that kind of mid-range would be B, in my opinion. But like the main reason why I say that is because like a Lou in a 1v1 shouldn't be able to really hit B too much, especially if you're a decent B player, because Lu's shots are just hard to hit anyways. B's can keep the distance. She can slow Lu as well. I just think there's hardly any way that you'll be able to get a Lu super from a B. That's just from my competitive experience down the line. I think that's a really tough matchup for Lu. And the same goes for Belle as well. Belle is kind of like B in a sense where you can actually outrange Lu, not feed Lu that super, and just win that 1v1 interaction in the middle. You know, I'm thinking of the map like Ring of Fire, for example. In that pure 1v1 scenario, these brawlers should be able to beat Lu pretty much all of the time. And then the last one is going to be Max. The reason why it is Max, again, in that 1v1, Lu's shots are just so hard to hit against some other mid-range brawlers. So Max should be able to wiggle in and out and be able to land the majority of the shots. So those are going to be the main counters to Lu. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler we're looking to counter, it is a Rosa. So Rosa right now is so incredibly strong with the hypercharge, but there are a few big counters to her in this current meta. So although she's not like the top 3 or top 5 like she used to be, she's still top 10 in my opinion, because you have to have one of these brawlers basically to shut her down. So the first one is going to be Charlie. There's no surprises here whatsoever. Charlie hard counters every single tank in the game, even with the nerf to her star power, where it only removes 25% of the HP. That's still a lot, especially for a big HP brawler like Rosa. But the main reason being is because Rosa just can't deal enough damage even when she pops out of the cocoon. She'll have the ammo now to respond, but she doesn't really have too much else to really counteract the Charlie. Charlie can just destroy her easily and feed supers for days. The next one is going to be Lu. So again, Lu has just been shutting down every single tank in the meta right now. He can feed a free super from Rosa pretty much all of the time. And of course, the really annoying thing when you face a Rosa is when she pops her shield and then slows you down. But you know, Lu can just freeze her and just stop that altogether. So fantastic counter. And of course, the last one, Shelly. Again, there's just no other explanation. Shelly just completely destroys tanks. And a good thing about Shelly as well is that you can destroy Rosa's grass. And that probably is the best thing about Shelly countering at Rosa. So jumping into the next brawler we're looking to counter, it is Shelly. So she's been at the top of the meta for forever, even since her recent nerfs. I still consider her a top 10 brawler because of how well she deals with tanks, and she can still cycle supers with the hypercharge. But anyways, the best counter for me would actually be Sandy right now. So Sandy should be able to win the mid engagement a lot of the time. There would be the odd occasion where Shelly can pop clay pigeons and get the kill, but Sandy with her stun and just also the wall peeking capabilities should be able to beat Shelly pretty much all of the time. The next one is going to be Spike. So again, that kind of mid-range interaction. You've got the life plant gadget that should be able to tank a lot of Shelly shots. I just think it's a pretty easy matchup a lot of the time. And of course, once you get your Spike super, it should be a free kill onto Shelly every single time. And then the last one, everyone knows this one, it's Nita, because Nita should be able to, again, wall peek a Shelly pretty easily, build up the Bruce Bear, and then Shelly just takes forever to deal with Bruce. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler that we're looking to counter, it is Spike. So I think Spike is creeping into the top 10, especially with the hypercharge. I just feel like he has a lot of pop-off moments, so it might be a bit of a surprise to you guys that he's in this top 10, but we're going to be looking at his best counters. So the first one, of course, is going to be pretty much any single thrower. Spike is one of the squishy brawlers in the game, so a lot of brawlers can like 2 or 3 shot his Spike pretty easily. So the first one's going to be Dynamite. Like, Dynamite has always been able to one-shot Spike with his demolition style power, and super combined just deletes him. You know, you could also just go with like a Sprout or a Barley. Any of these brawlers should be, or even Willow. Like, every single thrower just shuts down Spike easily. The next one's going to be Carl. So previously in a Carl meta, you know, I've always said that he can just destroy Spike. Main reason being, of course, he can just shoot through the life plant gadget. And a lot of times, if you catch Spike off guard, wasting a few pieces of ammo, you can flying hook onto him, especially if you got your super. There's just nothing Spike can do against that. There's just no way. Carl would just shred him alive. And then the last one is going to be Mr. P. So again, just because Spike is pretty squishy, Mr. P can handle it. And of course, Spike having a slow reload speed, will find it very annoying dealing with Mr. P's portals. So jumping into the next brawler we're looking to counter, it is Sandy. And again, Sandy I think has risen definitely to the top 50, maybe even top 10. And the thing is, I actually really struggled to actually find Sandy counters, because the good thing about Sandy in a way is that even if, you know, tanks can close the gap to you and take you down quickly because you have no DPS, you're going to build up that super. So, and the super is the best thing about Sandy. So the first one, it's going to be Lou. Again, it's not like the hardest counter, but the main reason being is because you can put your Lou super into a sandstorm and maybe keep Sandy from sneaking in and around the bushes, and I think maybe you can get a good freeze off and cycle your supers. I don't know, it's a bit more of a soft counter. I just like Lou against Sandy. The next one, of course, is going to be Rosa. I always go back to this one, and even though Sandy can feed super from a Rosa, there's just nothing that Sandy can really do once Rosa gets the super. She can just run all over a Sandy. And then the last one is going to be Jackie. So there's actually been a few scenarios in competitive where, for example, the enemy's gone like a Sandy on Hard Rock Mine. So then, of course, as the draft goes on, I think Jackie could just be a really good matchup against Sandy because, again, they're really low DPS. And then once Jackie gets super, you should be able to pull in Sandy pretty easily and win that 1v1 every single time. So it is pretty hard, though. I don't think Sandy really has any true counters. I think the best way to actually counter a Sandy is just to try and keep your distance as much as possible and stop Sandy from cycling those supers. Okay, so now jumping into the next brawler we're looking to counter, it is a Buster. So Buster is still boosted in this meta. He's so incredibly strong, and for a tank, he can actually deal with tank counters pretty well, I would say. Like Shelly, for example, he can actually win that 1v1 a lot of times, which is very rare for a tankier option. But the first one is going to be Rosa. So a fellow tank countering Buster is normally the way to go. There's nothing a Buster can really do once Rosa closes the gap. She can just absolutely shred a Buster, and especially with that super combined. I think in competitive, every single time the opponent goes Buster, Rosa is always in the pro player's mind. Next one being Daryl as well, because a lot of the times you want to be, of course, super close to a Buster with Daryl. And once you get that roll, you can literally close the gap so easily and win that 1v1 in a close range fight. And then the last one is going to be Bull. So pretty much the best way to counter Buster is by his fellow tanks, because again, Bull can super on top of a Buster, and there's nothing that he can do to really push back that Bull, because if anything with slow-mo replay, you pull people towards you. And of course, you don't want to be pulling a Rosa, Bull, or Daryl towards you, because they'll just destroy you up close. Okay, and jumping into the final brawler which we're looking to counter, it is Nani. And again, I kind of struggle to find true counters to Nani, because I just think the pure DPS that she can put out is insane, a little bit too strong. But first one's going to be Max. Max will always counter Nani for a few reasons. So Nani's main attack is one of the hardest to hit in the game, but of course one of the deadliest. But with Max, he can wiggle in and out and move pretty fast, and especially with a super as well, it's always been incredibly hard for a Nani to hit a Max in competitive. And the best thing about Max is that he can use the phase shifter gadget to tank a Nani head. So a lot of the times what people will do when they're playing Max, they'll literally run into that Nani peep with the phase shifter to tank it so it doesn't actually kill one of their teammates. A really good strategy. The next one is going to be Jean. So the main reason Jean can counter Nani is, of course, just chipping Nani down, and especially in Bounty, if Nani has the return to sender gadget, then Jean can just activate that, and then Nani has no value against it, because of course Jean's attacks are like 200 damage or whatever, so you're never going to get value against anyone if you're using return to sender. And the last counter, I think, again, pretty self-explanatory, is throwers. Like, throwers always have a good matchup against snipers, because a lot of the times they are squishy. So for example, if a Sprout can get onto the Nani lane on a map with unbreakable walls, they'll just destroy Nani, because of course there's no way for Nani to really do anything until, of course, they build up the peep. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Let me know whether I missed out on any counters or any good matchups in the comment section below. But I think that definitely cuts it, and especially I got a little bit of help from Drage, who is a pro player, of course, one of the best players in the world. So again, his approval just means that this is a really solid list. So that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.